Welcome to my realm of shadows. Political season is hot right now, and whether you're for Team Biden, Team Trump, or Team Nope, this video is for you. I'm here to analyze the results of the election. So, I'm a Republican, I voted for Donald Trump. My focus here is to be equal parts informative and persuasive as to the Republicans' claims of fraud and impropriety. While there is no smoking gun, I'm here to demonstrate that the political room is full of smoke and should be investigated and audited. And to be frank, I've spent days analyzing everything I can, and darn it if I'm not going to show off my pretty graphs regardless if they help or hurt my case. So despite the headlines, Joe Biden is not yet president-elect. The states select their electorates on December 8th, and then certify on December 14th. The person picked there becomes president-elect. Next, it's important to know that this race is close, very close. Not in the popular vote, yet. But a candidate is only as strong as their weakest states. This election has 7 toss-up states that various combinations of will determine the winner. The weakest for Joe is Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, and Wisconsin. His lead over Trump in these 4 states combined is 78,490 votes. There's also accusations that a number of Trump votes were swapped electronically to Biden, more on that in part 2 of the series. The important concept to understand is that a vote counts twice in our election system. To quickly demonstrate, if Bob and Jane both get 1 vote, they are tied. If Bob's voter doesn't turn out, he loses by 1 vote. If Bob's voter switches sides, then he loses by 2 votes. So, applying that here, if during recounts and audits, it is shown that 39,245 votes of Trump's were swapped in these 4 states, then he would win. So the minimum gap between Biden and Trump is somewhere between 39,245 and 78,490 votes, depending. Oh, and plus 4 more votes, because otherwise would be a tie. Once again, this is just to explain that this race is indeed very close. So for the next few stats, I'm using the Guardian's reported numbers on their 2020 electoral map. As of recording, Trump and Biden have the most votes of any candidates ever. Trump has 73.4 million versus Biden's 79.2 million. As votes are still being counted, the numbers will change some. So let's look at other 2020 races. This will definitely take explaining. First off, there were 35 Senate seats up for re-election. 13 Democrat, 22 Republican. The Republicans had more seats to defend than the Democrats. Georgia has a second election coming up, so it can't be factored in. The Republicans lost 2 seats, Arizona and Colorado, but gained 1, Alabama. Republicans end up with a net loss of 1 seat. I then looked at the House race. All members have to be elected every 2 years. Republicans started with 199 seats and are set to gain 14 seats in the House. Not enough to take the House, but very close. Then I looked at the 11 governor races. This map is by the LA Times live results. 4 Democrats, 7 Republicans ran for re-election. The Republicans ended up gaining 1, the Montana governor. Finally I looked at the state legislatures. Every state also has a Senate and House. This is the complex part. The data is from multistate.us. The calculations I did are simple sums, and are provided in the file in the description. So, there are 7,383 total legislature seats. This year, 5,877 of them were up for re-election. 6 states did not have elections this year, and some states had only half of their House and Senate up for re-election. So I looked at the before and after results of the seats of all states that had races. To be clear, we're looking at a total of 6,477 seats total, 5,877 which were affected by the election. So Republicans started with 3,376 seats, the Democrats with 3,028 seats, and all other parties combined with 73 seats. The Republicans ended with 3,574 seats, the Democrats with 2,879 seats, and all other parties with 23 seats. One seat is undecided on which of the parties it goes to, so all three have a 1-point margin of error. So a more specific breakdown in the net results, Republicans ended up gaining an additional 173 state House members. What's really impressive is that 57 seat gains happened in New Hampshire. Democrats ended up losing 136 House members. All other parties ended up losing 38 House seats. The Republicans ended up gaining 25 Senate seats, Democrats ended up losing 13, and all other parties lost 12. With these gains, the Republicans took a majority in the New Hampshire Senate and House, as well as gained enough for a majority in Alaska. In the final tally, Republicans gain 198 seats, plus one from Nebraska because Nebraska has to be different. No, seriously, it doesn't have a House and Senate, just one chamber, so its point gets tacked on at the end. Democrats end up losing 149 seats, and all other parties lost 50. All this leaves Republicans with supermajorities in 31 states, and Democrats with supermajorities in 19. There are still other races too, I haven't looked into them all. If you have a link to their results, I can update with a more complete list. All in all, this is looking like a Republican sweep. When the election looks like a Republican frat house, I don't understand how the incumbent can lose. +1 for suspicion. So I turned my attention back to the national stage. My next test was to test straight ballot versus voting independently. There's a strong correlation of people voting for their side's president, then down the ticket for the same party. And for the federal Senate, I compared the votes cast by state for each senator against votes cast for their president. When graphed in this way, the closer to 100% a point is, this means that as many people voted for the president also voted for their side's senator. Above 100% means that they voted less for their side's president and more for their senator. Below 100% means they voted more for their president than for their senator. This test can show potential fraud if a whole bunch of ballots show up for a president and nothing down ballot. If the ballots exclude the president but go down ballot, that's less suspicious. Anything more than a 10% deviation is statistically significant and should be examined further. And so when I did this, 4 states pop out. Most egregiously Louisiana, as you can see, more than half the people who voted for Biden did not vote for the state senator. This should be investigated. New Hampshire is similarly suspicious with 40% of people who voted for Biden did not vote for their state senator. Lastly, Rhode Island and Maine have a 20% deviation. Rhode Island for Trump, and Maine for Biden. Combining these 3 states, 700,000 ballots, or 42% of all voters supposedly have voted for Biden and not their respective senators. +1 for suspicion. I did the same thing for the House race. This was hours of manually transcribing all 435 districts and then verifying my results. The pain is real. A special problem with the House votes is that there are several districts where a person ran unopposed. So I have to remove all states from my data pool to run this comparison. I don't know what to make of the results. The only 2 states that stand out are, once again Louisiana, and then Hawaii. So, Hawaii didn't have a Senate race. 20% of Republican Hawaiians voted for Trump and not for Republicans in the House. Louisiana baffles me. So 56% of Democrats in Louisiana voted for Biden, but not for their state senator. Then 25% of Democrats didn't vote for their House member? There's going to be overlap in the groups. We're looking at a large block of voters who voted Biden, didn't vote their senator, then voted for their House member? I can't explain that one. This was just weird for me. So, that was a lot to take in. To summarize my points, the race is very close. Republicans have gained in the House and the state legislatures. I don't understand how Republicans can get a majority in both chambers of New Hampshire and then get neither House member nor the senator. Biden gets 42% more votes in Louisiana, Nebraska, and Maine than their state senators combined. Biden gets 25% more votes in Louisiana than all House members receive. None of this is proof, but the bottom is not matching the top, and it gets me pretty suspicious. If anyone has suggestions or feedback over what I presented, I'm glad to hear you out. In part 2, I'll go into mail-in votes and the many signed affidavits of voter fraud with focus on these 7 swing states, but for now, I hope I have presented new information as well as made my points well. Until next we meet, the shadow never sleeps.